Today, we discuss SaaS, early stage venture capital, and private equity. We also explore the difference between investing across cultures. I'm joined by Kenneth Thomas, who has his pulse on the early stage SaaS community. Kenneth is a principal at Back Futures, an early stage SaaS startup fund. He hosts the Mergers podcast, where finance meets forward momentum. He is also heavily involved in Sascoc, a community and ecosystem for SaaS founders. And he's an expat in London. Please welcome Kenneth. So you are plugged into the early stage VC community, and here I am plugged into the enterprise private equity, and I feel a little bit like the old man on the block, kind of curious what are the kids up to on the early stage side. And I guess we'll just start there, just broadly. You know, what are they like right now? What do they care about? What do they fear?
Well, I guess the larger thing is this it's gone away from like venture in a lot of ways. And I think there's also like deeper fragmentation of that in Europe. A lot of folks are just kind of not with venture vibe, which I get. We have a lot of bad stories and stuff, you know, people losing control, things of that nature. But then I guess in a more localized sense here, you have folks that founders just don't want to be dealing with UK investors before at all. I mean, we were doing an event with another VC fund, and they were like, some of our founders are seed or Series A. So I'm like, hey, if you know anyone that's at the stage that you're at as well, let them know, bring them through. And there were folks that just said, we don't want to meet UK investors like point blank. And one of them, a Series A company, that went as so far as to say, we'd rather close our doors than take UK money. And I was like, bit of hyperbole there, but I guess everything has a kernel of truth somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, things kind of change when you actually are shutting the doors. But what is it about UK investors versus the US that's turning them off?
I really hate to like do this age-old like American European thing. I mean,
hey, we won, Kenneth. That's behind us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, like, we're more vision-based. I think a lot of us understand what it means to kind of start from nothing or very little. So, like, we can underwrite that what we typically call the napkin deals, but really napkin deals means we just have a framework that we can work through really quickly in how we underwrite something at an early stage. Still getting stories about, you know, 5-year financial plan requests and deep data rooms for, you know, a pre-seed deal. When I was in San Francisco, one thing I also noticed is like kind of a living history to venture in tech. They could speak to. I had opportunity to speak to people that are like 25 years in the space, people that worked with Steve Jobs, Reid Hoffman worked for one of them back in the day, Sun Microsystems, and that living history is kind of hard to get out here. Maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Interesting. It's still that American spirit that's built in. Let's go conquer the Wild West and do some crazy stuff. And maybe there's just whispers of that still even within the financial worlds, huh?
Like, someone made a very interesting point, like from a historical context, like who are the people that went to America from the old world? Like absolute nut jobs. And then like and of that population, who went further west to California? Like the nut jobs of the nut jobs. So, I mean, like, I think it's kind of in the genes there, in the blood a little bit.
Yeah, those parts of culture really last. I did a bunch of work with a couple Icelandic companies, and they still have this Viking mentality where they just hate. They have a word. I wish I memorized it, but the word, someone will have to post it to me. It means basically like we hate process. We don't need process, and everything we'll just kind of figure it out because we have to, and we've always had to, right? And it's kind of neat how each of those cultures kind of permeate through. Now, you've gone from America over to Europe, and you're trying to build, like, first of all, tell me about the type of community and ecosystem that you're trying to build and foster over there.
Well, I think it's kind of started when I'd gone into partnerships in tech, because it's very obviously relationship-based. You know, these things don't act, if you're lucky, they activate 6 to 12 months. On average, they're activating in 18 to 24. So it's very much like requires activation, building people together, deepening relationships, and, you know, what that kind of looks like. And eventually, I feel like the end result of that is community in some form or fashion, because you can't activate everyone. You activate those you really align with. And then, as I mentioned with Sascoc, like, this is like a 10-year project in terms of bringing together B2B SaaS founders and operators and bringing them a very specialized, hyper-focused place for them to come together. So that's kind of been like an accelerant to what my perception and understanding of what it means. And it's kind of worked out well. I mean, you're able to bring this like aspect of inclusivity, leading with value, right? And I think that's kind of the biggest aspect I do. And even when I speak to founders, it's like, even if it's not something for me, maybe I could make an introduction to another investor or a commercial introduction, which I've done before that I've ended up adding to, the top lines of certain companies I've spoken to, and to do that without needing to be asked. You just see that alignment and because if you speak to someone, you can underwrite a person, right, to some form or fashion. So that's kind of how it's kind of come across and how I've developed my own method, I guess. But yeah.
I hate to generalize, but I'm curious, what's the general profile or profiles that you're seeing of these SaaS founders? Are they more bright-eyed, fresh-eyed, or are they, people that have made their way through a few different enterprise SaaS companies and now want to start their own thing? Is it a healthy mix? What's it look like?
It's kind of split in the same way you see funding rounds. You have really, really small, lean guys trying to do something in AI at 1 mil, but then you see there was just a round that was done not long ago with Lakestar and some other folks. It was like 12.8 million seed for basically adding AI to tax collections. I've seen people in that space. They've been either in that space for so long, and now AI is the time where they realize they can automate workflows, really affect these workflows with AI and create a working product out of it. Or you have someone that's kind of young, that hasn't really worked in this stuff before, but had the entrepreneurial mindset, looking to do things. But I saw an interesting aspect or analysis somewhere that said Gen Z, or was it Gen Z? I guess, yeah, Gen Z, that's probably the age range now. They haven't known the pathway that I guess us millennials were kind of sold. Like, you go to college, do this X, Y, Z, da, da, da. Everything they've known has been kind of absolute degradation of one's career and outcomes, that if you don't have complete ownership of yourself. So they've kind of taken that on their own. So you go, west, you look at Cluely and stuff like that, where people have just said, we're just going to do this for ourselves, and whatever happens, and taking ownership. So on the flip side, you have people that have been in it for so long, maybe this is the time they see to take ownership of their own stuff, and they have the experience and domain expertise. We've done both sides on the deal side, the domain expertise and the rebel, so to speak.
How is the topic of AI kind of making its way through the investment world? And I'm curious if there's unique between America and what you're seeing in Europe.
So I guess from my own perspective, when we first started in 23, I was, AI was kind of hot. It just came out. Everyone's like, oh, this is going to change everything. I chose to kind of stay away from it because I just didn't know much about it. And I had a feeling a lot of other people didn't know about it either. Then you see all these iterations of OpenAI and stuff like that, and seeing what real value, at least fool's gold value was, I guess, in certain things. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of value wiped out. Then I was like, okay, then I started developing my own thesis about this. Okay, there's some domain expertise stuff you can kind of get through. People have executed very well on it. And obviously then it becomes the only moat is expertise and execution at that point, right? And that's what you kind of underwrite. And now I've kind of gotten to this place where I just have a hard time getting excited about certain things. I think which means now just looking at non-sexy industries like tech for tech, AI is kind of hard in my opinion. You see high growth rate and stuff. If it's tech for tech, you see explosive growth, but then you have a churn issue. Revenue sustainability is always a major concern. But then, people still do it. I think at what point do we become traders and not investors, where you then say, oh, seed investors need to be getting out at Series B, Series A, Series B, not completely, versus taking your principal off the table. So it's really just changing fundamentally a lot of how people will kind of approach this. And I'm not here to say I'm long in the tooth in this stuff in terms of having been in the game, but having spoke with people that have been in it for a very long time, the game is changing very rapidly. So I mean, right now it's just kind of just asking yourself, why does this use case matter? Is this a real use case? Have you spoken to your customers? And sometimes the simplest Occam's razor, right? The simplest answer or outcome is probably the answer.
Yeah. Just make sure you're not getting distracted by the fancy words, and just get that back to the root of what the heck are we solving and who are we solving it for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Occam's razor never fails. I will say in the past. This year, I'm hearing more CEOs say it out loud than they were last year, as far as we need to not be hiring as many people. We need to be doing more with less. I mean, we've always said do more with less, but I'm seeing a notable trend of people not being shy about, being very vocal about it, right? But ultimately, it's I don't know. In my mind, it's never really about let's get rid of people, and it's more about how can we make our people more powerful, more successful, right?
Yeah. For what's worth, my stepdad, he's done a lot of program management, worked in AI for a bit as well himself at an enterprise level. And, now he's running these projects specifically in healthcare and some other stuff. And to what you said before, a lot of the C-suite doesn't understand what it actually means and how to use it and what the value actually is of it. They just say, we need AI, we need to bring in AI. And part of it you wonder, is it just for them to reduce headcount and costs so and as opposed to hiring McKinsey, they could just ask AI to do it. And then, yeah, like there's just a fundamental misunderstanding of why they actually need AI in the first place, which is fine. It's a new technology. Well, I guess new on like the stage we know it as, but I think you have a lot of knee-jerk reactions, and we've seen this kind of flowing through. It started with VC investors getting hyped about it, and now you have like I guess regular people kind of getting more in tune with what it actually means, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe switching gears a little bit, I'd love to pull the thread on the founders and the common kind of trends and themes that you're seeing out there. Maybe one interesting place to start is fundraising. Like, are you seeing things that like maybe before fundraising they have misconceptions about what it is, or you're seeing common mistakes? I'd love to explore that topic.
Well, there's a few things. I think one, there's a lot more founders because with everything going on with layoffs, there's a lot of layoffs now. The talent uptake doesn't necessarily correlate with or meet that. A lot of folks aren't going to back to traditional industries or into traditional industries, so we have more founders. AI reduces the barrier to be a founder. I don't think everyone should be a founder. I will not be a founder. I think I'll be a great operator, but I don't think I'm kind of person to be a founder, admittedly. I guess with that, then you see the 1%. You see this round's closed with like, whatever story, little to no revenue or no product, massive round. They call it, but they're going to call it a pre-seed or a seed when in reality it's probably close to a Series A type deal. So seeing a bit of that, but then that also confuses people where they say like, oh, well, I have an idea and I have a deck, so I should be able to raise this as well, because we all think we're the best, and that's fine. Like you kind of need to have that mindset to be doing this. Sure. But I've been seeing a lot of that. You see these really crazy rounds coming out, and people just think, oh, money's flowing like it used to be. But in reality, there's a lot of funds that are winding up. There's a lot of attrition going on in the industry. You have a lot of VCs that are going to the operator or founder side now because the pathway to partner was always very hard in a lot of places, but especially in this current market, that's also changing. So you have those, and then I won't claim this statement, but there was someone that said VCs turned founders know exactly what to say, but they might not know how to execute, which was a very interesting thing to say because there's a lot of ex-VCs getting funded for certain things. It sounds good,
Sure.
I'm going to believe it's good, but, a lot of these folks, especially in Europe, I think 1.8% of VCs have ever founded a startup, let alone worked in a startup. So we could take from that what you will.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've seen a million pitches. They know what, how those pitches are interpreted. They know exactly the right things to say, right? But once you're in the kitchen cooking, it's a whole different story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I guess when money's flowing, you can kind of get away with just sociopathic levels of blind self-confidence, and that'll carry you a surprisingly far amount. But when you were saying some people shouldn't be founders, you don't want to be I'm curious, what are the traits that you see that really make people stand out?
For me, and I've noticed this, whether it's someone that's experienced in their domain or someone that's kind of new earlier in their career, and maybe it's just the American in me. Like I've really focused on the story aspect of things. Like I feel like a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but I've seen books that look like tomes, or however you pronounce it. That very good at telling you the what. Like this is what it is. A lot of times it's not succinct. I love succinctness, but then also like, how does this story actually matter? Like, why should we care about this? And like, I tried to find very nice ways to ask it, but I've asked so many times I just blatantly say, why should I or anyone else care about this? I understand what you're talking about, but what does it actually mean? At the earliest, I think it's just the core of what that means,
Tell me about the Sascoc community and the events that are going on with that. What are the general vibes and the themes that you're seeing there?
It's a long-standing community. There's a lot of folks that have kind of taken their entrepreneurial journey, founder journey with Sascoc. Like I said, it's 10 years old. Seeing people start and exit. I mean, for instance, like Personio, which is like a big health tech company out here, or benefits, I guess. They were in Sascoc when they were like 3 people, and there's a few stories that kind of correlate with that. And now we're at that point, which is also kind of the ethos of our fund, is like folks folks giving back, go back to the future. And we're at that cycle now where it's time for folks to kind of come give things back to the next generation and help them out. And I guess from my own experience, being in America, when we went to Austin, Texas, it was very interesting because there were people that I hadn't seen in almost 7 years, 5 years that came to Austin to be a part of it. So that was really interesting. And like bringing all these people together, especially that I knew. And then you had this very intense 2-3 days, everyone's there. And then they've met for the first time. Then at the end of it, like we're leaving. I saw people like hugging, shaking hands. I'm like, and I was like, 48 hours ago, these people didn't even know each other. Now, like there's a true relationship there. People still keep contact. It's about B2B SaaS for sure. But like, I think the connections there speak a lot more to, I guess, the human element of things, And I think with AI, whether it was SaaS or it was AI, I think just that aspect of just that human-to-human connection is kind of the underpinning of everything. And as long as you remember that, I think that's kind of what SaaS Life is about.
And you really accelerate those relationships when you're dealing with the same types of challenges and opportunities. I know when I go to events where it's other founders of consulting companies, professional services companies, there's a fast forward in our conversations that we could just immediately bond and, become immediate best friends. And I see the same thing in the B2B SaaS world. I feel like a lot of those folks, those founders there, we're working with their companies after they've already had success. They've gone public. Maybe they started off selling to SMB and mid, and now they've pivoted to enterprise. And we're having to clean up all of the, everyone says break stuff and move fast. But then at some point, you do need to start cleaning up from all the breaking stuff that you had done. And that's valid, right? Because you don't want to over-engineer at the beginning. And I'm curious, like, how's your view of it at the beginning? Like people are like, oh, we're going hardcore SMB, we're going hardcore enterprise, or like, are you just do you just want to see them going in any direction fast, or you want to see them like truly thinking about it?
I've noticed a lot of folks just kind of building without a direction. Maybe it comes back to that whole point where like, lack of uptake of talent in the industry or in the space. And usually now I feel like I find myself asking founders, like, have you spoken to any customers? Are you building with a customer? And more often than not, the answer is no. They'll typically say, oh, we want to get to X point, and then we will start having conversations. I'm like, well, you're building off a hypothesis, but you haven't like even confirmed this in the conversation, at least one conversation. Like, you want to have multiple ones, but like not even a single one. But the ones that like I see really making strides, like they are selling first and then building second. And I think that's valid because we're in a space where you can build a lot faster. AI is definitely good for helping that. If you're able to code, you can accelerate that. It allows us to get to the human aspect of things a bit earlier on. That's kind of the biggest thing I've seen for people that have been successful. But then I'll see the folks that aren't talking to customers, and you could just tell in the deck, you could tell in the pitch, you could they have written down what matters.
Yeah. It's funny because we'll see that same persona be successful or not successful at the more matured level, because maybe they've had a ton of success with SMB over the last decade, made a lot of money, they've gone public, and now they're pivoting to enterprise. They'll spend a year or more building out all this crazy marketing and e-commerce and whatever, but no one's actually even determined what is enterprise going to buy this. Just because SMB did doesn't mean that they're going to, or if they are, maybe it looks completely different, not just a little bit different from what we're doing now. And so I guess that's maybe long-winded way of saying that story is not just important at the founding level, but it's at the scale and the growth stages as well.
Yeah. And I guess it's interesting, a return question is like, there's always a conversation about like the first $1 billion, the first unicorn that's run by one person and stuff, And my whole thing is like, we know how slow enterprise is to move. I mean, like, sure, like, and this is away from the SME side. Do you believe even a AI-ified one-man company can even meet the procurement requirements of a large enterprise? How do you manage multiple enterprise deals at one time while managing a business at the same time, even if you automate it with AI? But great to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think all big ships are hard to pivot. We still have fax machines, right? So like that's still a thing. I think that there's going to be niches out there. That whole like one person $1 billion company, I don't think it's going to be a common thing. I think there's going to be like some, and especially in the early movers, maybe some niches here and there. But like when you're making that much money, there are a lot of human things that are going out. There's customers, right? In theory, there are human customers out there that are paying something, and they have their own human needs and desires. And AI and robots are not gonna go 100% for them. Will companies will be less bloated. That's a good thing, right? And I don't know. In my mind, AI is the same thing as software. It's the same thing as just like being more efficient. It's like I think companies will be forced to be more efficient, but it'll be very rare, those one-person billion-dollar companies, I think.
Yeah. Or it'll be like the people, how people say, agents buying from agents, right?
Yeah. Well, there's going to be plenty of that as well. So tell me a little bit about your journey from, you were embedded in the American, financial world, and now you're in Europe. What are the kind of fun, we're talking about humans. What are the kind of like fun human differences that you're seeing there?
If you're able to move at an American pace in Europe, at least in my experience, you could go pretty far. You could do some pretty interesting things. You'll be given an interesting few shots at goal as an American versus like anyone localized. But I think that's fair. I mean, when you look at the profile like of someone that, again, we spoke about, who are the first ones to go to the new world, right? We talk about who's a person to leave their own country to try to make it happen in another country. Like there's a level of risk, ownership, and initiative there that you can underwrite at a very early stage with that, which I think kind of goes well in that direction. But I think meeting people from countries I probably would have never been to. There's been times I've met someone and then we end up going to their country and stuff like that. So that's been an interesting aspect. Like in Europe, like you can move around very quickly, but it's radically different from like one country to the next in a lot of cases. So that's been great. If I may, I know we say America's like 50 countries masquerading as one, or 4 regions, 4 countries as one, but it's all the same language, like roughly the similar culture. But out here, it's just been it stretches you a bit, So that's been very interesting. I think to see myself kind of become a bit more fluid in that sense, and picking up on certain things and being able to interact in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Boston, and not to throw shade, but I mean, Alabama is very much a different language in a different country than Boston.
Yeah.
I love to finish with a fun question, which is, what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best one I've ever gotten is my mentor from undergrad. He, PhD economics. Milton Friedman actually mentored him, and he showed me through a lot of times as well. He was saying in life, you can either be a participant or a spectator. And if you're not a participant, then you're a spectator. Someone's participating for you. That's one I've kept very, very much well. And it's helped me with decision making, speed to decisions, and understanding where my place lies in things. Because if you don't make a decision for yourself, someone else will. That's kind of the best advice I think I've gotten.
I love it, man. Speed to decisions, I am a huge fan of. Ken, thanks again. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.